Hey guys, this is Java Monkey J. Today we're talking about the Diablo 4 beta and my thoughts for players that are interested in potentially picking this game up on launch, both as filthy casuals and as hardcore. First of all, let's talk about context. I've played about 10 hours of the beta. I played through as a rogue. I got to level 25. I completed all the rogue specific dungeons and a few of the other ones just to get some loot and check them out. I completed the campaign in about 4 to 5 hours. And I played the whole time on level 2 difficulty. I never had to switch out of that harder setting for the game, and specifically I played a trap / melee rogue build. Really quickly, this is my build and this is the gear I ended on. If you're interested in a build guide on something like this, let me know, or if you want me to talk about what I was thinking during the build, comment down below and I can make a video about it. With all that out of the way, let's get into my thoughts about the game. The first thing you notice before you even play the game is, wow, these cinematics are incredible. Really, the artwork and visual design of the game and cinematics are just so good. I think the essence of the game is really captured well through the cinematics in and outside of the game, meaning that when you see the cinematics, you aren't sitting there like, yeah, this can't exist in the game. This is way too high quality in comparison to the actual in-game look. The cinematics feel great, look super cool, and they do a good job of keeping you immersed in the game. A lot of the cinematics or cutscenes actually render in your character, so it's pretty cool that when you go to meet Inarius, you literally see your character talking to him. It's a small immersion thing, but in my opinion, it's pretty cool. I think if they keep the direction of the cinematics and cutscenes in the later acts, it would make the game a good step above the previous versions. For cutscenes and cinematics, I'd give the game a 10 out of 10. They really are cool. If you haven't seen them, I linked a video of all the Diablo 4 cinematic scenes down below. Talking about cutscenes and cinematics, we can move on to the story of the game. The story is pretty compelling and narratively doesn't have too many holes. Basically, the story of Act 1 is you are a traveler lost in a blizzard. You find yourself seeking refuge in an extremely sus village after helping the villagers with their local demon problem. The villagers drug you and shove demon blood down your throat. You are saved right before you are sacrificed to the demon Lilith, which you later learn has made her return to the surrounding villages in an attempt to persuade them to do her bidding. Your goal as the traveler is to coordinate with the local demon prevention authorities in an attempt to rein in Lilith before she kills too many people or messes up too many things. Along with local demon prevention authorities, we seek help from a fallen angel, a fellow traveler, and a washed up priest. The beta level or Act 1 does a good job of telling the story in an interesting way and really captured my attention through their use of cinematics to make you feel immersed in the story. The only issues with the story being nitpicky plot points, but if the trajectory continues with the game, we should be in for an interesting adventure. I'll interject with my main issue with the story, and this really goes for all Diablo games. In previous Diablo games, the story often unfolds as such. The complete story is made up of 5 acts. You can think of these as chapters. As you play through the acts 1 through 5, the entire story is complete, but generally you are only 1/4 of the way through the game. The game cycle repeats acts 1 through 5 again, but this time on a harder difficulty, but plot points and the story stays the exact same. Think about if you read a book, and then you read the book again, but the book has smaller text. The game adds artificial difficulty to the game, but you play this exact same story. This really gets repetitive and annoying, especially for casual players, as essentially they're playing the exact same game over and over again, at least 3 times before making it to the end game, where you will farm the same locations over and over again. I would hope that in Diablo 4, Blizzard has found a way to innovate on this repetition in a way that feels good for casual players, so that more players can make it to the end game and get locked into the ARPG experience. However, the answer to this will only be found out upon the full release of the game. Overall, I'm giving game story a tentative 7 out of 10. Now let's talk about the most important aspect of ARPG games, combat. How does the combat feel? Is it good? Is it fun? Are there meaningful choices and abilities? These are all questions I will try to answer from a general perspective, but first I would like to preference with the following. Answering questions about combat in a Diablo type game using only 1 act on a normal mode as reference is sort of like creating React content for a living. You are basing your opinions only on what is provided to you. Most of the time, you don't really know what you're talking about. You're kind of just talking out of your ass, and the likelihood of you making an apology video goes through the roof the longer you talk. Saying all of that, the combat has issues. Let's start with the bad, then we can talk about good. Playing a melee character in this game is only for masochists. Like most ARPG titles, the best characters are ranged characters. This is because a lot of the time, enemies will cast multiple abilities on you, and if you are ranged, you can simply move out of those abilities. But as a melee character, you have to get up close to enemies, and it often means standing in damage. Standing in damage gets you killed, especially at higher tiers of the game, where the amount of damage and abilities increases dramatically. Diablo 4 does give melee characters like rogues a good amount of tools to deal with these mechanics, such as dodge with invincibility frames, a good amount of life stealing, advanced movement abilities, and extra defenses. However, this comes at the cost of trading off defensive abilities and stats for offensive ones, and increasing the skill required to successfully play a melee character at higher levels. Essentially, playing a melee character is like bringing wine to a kegger. Yes, the wine is suave, it's delicious, there are notes of oak, but we're trying to get shit-faced and wine is $30 a bottle. You can get a gallon of vodka for $5 and get the exact same results. Why make the game harder if you don't have to? Saying that, playing melee is fun and has its place in the game, but likely at high levels, melee builds will not be meta and will be more trouble than what they're worth. Abilities and skill trees. The amount of freedom you have in regards to how you build your character is incredible. There are certainly going to be some absolute top tier builds that will dominate the YouTube tutorial feed, but you can probably make almost any build work decently. Each ability feels impactful and has multiple tiers of support within the skill tree to build around that ability. On top of this, item customization allows you to store legendary attributes and modify standard attributes on items to tailor specifically to the type of build you want to have. Most abilities are visually interesting as well. The game sort of has almost a grayscale color to it, but most of your abilities have bright and well-defined effects, so you feel like you're making an impact to the world and enemies around you. It's hard to put into words, so I'll just include this clip of me using a bunch of my abilities so you can see what I mean. Overall, for character design, I'll give Diablo 4 a 7 out of 10. The enemies themselves should also be mentioned in combat. They can be divided up as bosses, mini-bosses, and minions. Bosses are good, kind of. All bosses are the same formula. They have their own arena that is skinned to look different than the other arenas, but it's basically the same size environment. The boss will do 2 to 3 mechanics, likely one of which will be to summon adds, the other will be some variation of their attack that will do significantly more damage, and the third is usually a unique ability that relates to an elemental type, being frost, fire, blood, electric, poison, etc. The bosses are not pushovers. Some of them are actually pretty challenging. I died several times trying to kill them. Maybe I'm bad, or maybe my build is bad, but it seems most people agree the bosses are at least not pushovers. This is good. However, this could be bad. In previous versions of the game, as you venture into the higher difficulties in the game, bosses gain affixes that modify their ability to take or receive damage, meaning a certain boss does XYZ mechanic, and maybe he's in a fire environment, so he does fire damage. The next time you fight him on a higher difficulty, he might have improved fire damage, or he might be resistant to frost. You fight him on the next higher difficulty, and now he has the same mechanics, is resistant to poison and frost, and does extra fire damage. And let's also say he runs faster now. This is an example of what affixes do to modify the difficulty of a boss. This is bad. This requires minimal effort and really limits the type of gameplay you can have when meaningful changes in your class come from elemental damage variations, which Diablo 4 does. Instead, what I would like to see from Diablo 4 is increasing the amount of fundamental mechanics a boss has, or improving difficulty of the boss in a meaningful way that doesn't directly make some classes or builds impossible to play. Altogether, I'd give combat a tentative 7 out of 10. It's not bad, it could be better. Blizzard hasn't seemed to revolutionize the way ARPG combat plays for the better, but again, there is still time to see how combat evolves at higher levels. In conclusion, I think Diablo 4 is going to be a fun game for casual ARPG enjoyers. I think someone can pick up this game for $70, play through to the end game, and have a good fun experience and feel like they got their money's worth. The story seems promising, the combat feels okay, and the art direction is fantastic. So if you enjoyed Diablo, or if you enjoyed the Diablo aesthetic or idea, or if you want to check out an ARPG for the first time to see if it fits right for you, this is a good game to get your hands on. However, I don't believe we will see Blizzard make meaningful innovations to the ARPG scene with this title that are needed to keep casual enjoyers engaged in the end game. Meaning, this game likely won't revive the ARPG community, or make ARPGs as popular as, let's say, Battle Royales are right now. On the other hand, as the game relates to hardcore ARPG enjoyers, the systems included in the game seem promising enough to likely earn a pre-order from that audience, Many systems seem to be geared to allow maximum customization for characters and provide multiple ways to grind out best in slot gear. In the end, for both audiences, only time will tell if Diablo 4 is a success. Personally, based on my experience with the beta, I'm predicting a soft 8 out of 10 for Diablo 4. If you've made it this far through the video, I want to say thank you for watching. I've been Java Monkey J. Peace.